welcome back to RLR Creations. I'm Claire, and today the video is for the Chase Duffle bag by RLR Creations. Wow, comes in 3 sizes: small, large, which is the one we make in the video, and then a beast of an extra large. They're huge. They have a front zipper pocket. They have a zipper pocket to your inside, an inside zipper pocket, a zipper pocket on your side here, and then this is the best bit. You have one here that has a shoe pocket, so your shoes can be kept in your bag or your dirty washing without being inside your other stuff. It's a drop-in bag method, but I quite enjoyed it. I don't always like drop-in linings, but I'm trying something new to me. Somebody else has probably done it. I struggle to sew the tops and things, although this wouldn't be so bad because it's quite a nice big opening, but I thought I'd see. I've glued it, so I've followed it all, but I've glued it instead of stitching it, so I'm going to see how it wears that way, and if needs be I can always top stitch it. But that's my summer holiday bags well and truly sorted. And my smaller one has got purple inside. I didn't have enough light purple or the duck purple, so we've gone purple and my green. They're a great bag as well because when you're not using them, they literally, you can fold them down to nothing. So I've used waterproof canvas, and I put odicoat on my my cotton. So my cotton's got a water resistant finish, and I've used ripstop inside. Oh, look at that. I've not done this before, so I thought, oh, let's give this a go. Oh, even better, look. How's that for storing your travel bags? I love it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please like and subscribe to my channel. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Okay then, thank you. Bye. Right, so we're going to need our zipper tape and our zipper tabs. I'll do one on camera and then I'll do the other one off camera. I do it slightly different than in the pattern, only because I find it easier than trying. My fingers and thumbs don't always work very well, so this way I don't have to fumble around too much. So I've turned it over the amount stated in the pattern, and I'm doing both sides at once and folding it in half, so you've got a sealed edge. Now, taking my zipper tape, trim that off and just burn the edges to stop them from fraying. Now, I'm going to pop that on. We do want to make sure that we don't go too far into the tab, because we're going to sew the tab through in the fabric, so we don't want too much of the zipper in here because it will make the bit thicker. So when that's on even, I lay my zip out, making sure my zipper pulls in the middle, take my ruler. Now the pattern says how long the finished zip needs to be, so I go along, I put this on here where it would be the finished length. So the overall length should be that. Taking my air erasable marker, make a line with my scissors. I'm going to cut not too far past that line, enough that I can leave some inside. And I will find one that works in a minute. And then taking my zipper tab, pop it on up to that line, making sure both sides match up. Clip. And then if I've done this right, it should measure the distance required. And then I'll take that to machine and I'll just top stitch across there, and I'll do exactly the same with the other zip. I'll do that off camera and then we can go on to the next step. So that's now your zipper for your shoe pocket done, and your zipper for your top of your bag done. So we're going to put those to one side and we're going to get on to the next step. Right, so now we're going to need our A piece, our B piece, our F piece of fleece, and one of our E pieces. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, and our the larger zip that we did, so the largest zip that you've done. So we're going to take these two, we're going to fold them right sides together and stitch. So we're going to stitch that together, so making sure you've gone down to your construction length stitch, following the seam allowance in the pattern. Now what you're going to do, you're going to open it up. Right, so I'm just going to go and unpick that now, because I've managed to put the right side on the back. So I will just take that off and I'll be back. Right, so I've restitched that on the right way round now. I've added some double-sided sticky tape and I've taken it off. I've not peeled it off on camera because if you've seen my other videos, you'll know that I don't always get it off very well. I am using fusible fleece, but because I'm using waterproof canvas and I've odicoated my fabric, it doesn't always want to stick when I've tried to iron it. So, oh, excuse me. So we will stick that on. It should have the same gap all the way round, give or take, depends on how well you've cut it out. Right, so now I forgot the other bit we're going to need. We're going to top stitch across here and here, and we're going to add the connector. So we need our connector strap and our connector tab. Right, so I'm using some waterproof canvas. The pattern says to use the handle, but I'm using webbing that's 2 inches and not the 1.5 inches, and my hardware is 1.5 inches. So to fit the connectors to the bag, I've cut a 3-inch square because being waterproof canvas, I don't need to have too many folds in it. Then take it to fold it up. Could add glue or double-sided tape to it. So when I did the directions in the pattern, it was a bit too thick, so I've just halved it. Find the center of your panel. I like to cut a little bit because, you know, I don't lose the marks then. Now, with a air erasable pen, you want to measure down the amount in the pattern, and then we will put this on here like so, measuring it to the center up. So I'm going to take that to machine now, and I'm going to top stitch here and top stitch here, and then we'll put this on as well. So we're going to top stitch length, which is just over 3.5 for me, and we're going to stitch this down. The good thing about stitching this down now with the fleece in is it helps secure the fleece. So although I've put the double-sided tape, it will help to keep the fleece in place as well. With loose threads. Now put this onto here, lining the top of this bit up with the ring. Stitch as close to there as you can. I stitch across just to give it extra support, because if you're going to carry it with a shoulder strap, that's going to be a lot of weight on just 2 points. Now on to the next step. Right, so now we're going to need a longer of the 2 zips that we did a minute ago, and we are going to want to find the middle of the zip. Again, this is an air erasable pen. Move our hardware down, and then we're going to start at the top, and we're going to place our zip down and around. the zip will come past the end of the bag. That is what it is meant to do. The zipper tabs come past the end, which is why you also want to make sure your zip doesn't go right into the end, because that just adds extra bulk when you go to sew it up at the end. Pin it nice and well. Now this also, the pattern says to then add the lining e-piece on, but what I'm going to do, and if you're not so sure about sewing on curves with 3 separate layers that you've got to keep in one place, I'm going to stitch it round now using a smaller seam allowance than what the pattern states. So then when I then come to sew this lining on, I'll use the full seam allowance. So take that to the machine and we'll stitch that. Right, so we're going to take that to the machine, make sure our machine's gone back down to construction length stitch. As I said, I'm using a smaller seam allowance to start with, and I'm just going to slowly work my way round, moving the zip out the way. Use my fingers and thumbs don't always work so well, so I use hemostats just to keep everything nice and close to the edge. Slow and steady wins the race. I don't put cuts in my zipper tape because I'd be worried it frays. But slow and steady, and just making sure the two match up, will be fine. Just manipulate the zip around as you go. Don't forget, you control the fabric. The fabric doesn't control you. Go, there's your zip on. So now we're going to clip on our e-piece. Right, so my e-piece, I know where the center is because I cut it on the fold. So I'm going to line up. This is my inside, this is my outside, so I'm going to put them right sides together. I'm going to line up my little V at the top with that one, and I'm just going to pin it all the way round. Pin at the bottom. So we want to match this bottom bit up here with the bottom bit of the fabric, not the zipper tab. The zipper tab does stay out of the bottom of the fabric. See, it's it feels like it doesn't fit. Just manipulate the fabric and suddenly it fits. So it's all about moving, squishing the fabric to get it to go where you want. Again, going to match up the corner with the corner, not the zipper tab. So if you're not so confident on sewing around a circle and controlling all 3 layers, this way you just still only have 2 layers to control. So we're going to take that to the machine now, and we are going to stitch all the way round with the seam allowance in the pattern. We are leaving this bit open. Don't sew across it. Let's go to the machine. Okay, so I swapped out to a narrower foot. Now we're going to follow the seam allowance in the pattern. We're coming up to the zipper, so I'm going to move it out of the way, she says, hopefully. Or not. There we go. And if it feels bumpy and lumpy, just manipulate it. You have the power, not the fabric. Now I'm going to turn that round. I'm not going to cut any of it because this is really thin and I don't want to cut the zipper tape in case it frays. So we'll turn that round. Right, so I'm going to turn that round, pull that inside out. There we have nice zipper, so you can just pull it, finger press it. If you've used cotton, whatever, you can iron it. So now we're going to take that to the machine and we're going to top stitch all the way around there, and I'll be back after I've made dinner. So making sure you've gone back to your construction length stitch and put your start and stop at the beginning and then just come all the way around as close to the edge as you can. There we go. There's your first pocket stitched. Now on to the next one. Right, so now we're going to do our second pocket. So we're going to need our C pieces, so your front and your lining, and your D pieces, your front and your lining, and your zipper tape. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the exterior fabric and you're going to place it right side down. Sorry, dyslexic brain doesn't always work. I'm going to pin it, and then you're also going to take your lining, which is I'm using ripstop. I have an interface because it doesn't particularly stick to it. This is my right side, that is my wrong side, so I am going to place right sides together but on the wrong side of the zipper. And then we're going to take that to the machine and we're going to stitch that. And then when we've done that, we're going to add this one on the same way and stitch it. So making sure we have it down set back at construction length, using the seam allowance stated in the pattern. Flip it up. Do not top stitch yet, but you can. Let's move this way a bit. But it is a good idea just to pop a couple of clips on the top just to keep it out of the way. So now we're going to add our exterior piece. Again, it's right sides, but what I'm doing is I'm checking that I'm lining up the the pieces. Just checking them. So now we're going to put, so that's the right side of the fabric against the right side of the zipper. So we're now placing the right side of the lining against here. So we're sandwiching it all in. I've probably made that sound way more complicated than it actually is. Now when you pull this down, you've got your zipper panel. So you do want to top stitch this side only. You're not top stitching the top here, just this one here. So make sure you've pulled it all down nicely. Tell you what I forgot to do, I forgot to put my top stitch length on, but as the bag's for me, I'm not on stitching it. I will just be fine for me. Now what you want to do is you want to grab your connector and your connector tab. Again, the pattern does tell you how to how to do it, but as I'm using webbing and my webbing's too wide to do this one, I'm using my waterproof canvas instead, doing it exactly the same way as it says to do it in the pattern to make the handles, etc. I need an extra pair of fingers. An extra set of fingers might help. So pin that together. So we're folding it up at the back because then that makes sure that there's no raw edges in it. So it's a way of getting a nice clean finish. Right, so we want to find our centres. Now we want to grab our ruler and mark it out, a erasable pen, some way of removing that will remove itself. Mark down the amount stated in the pattern, and we're going to pop this on here, resting this bit with the line there, making sure that we've eyeballed it to the centre, making sure that the lining flap is brought down so that then when you actually go to when you see inside the pocket, you don't see this bit of the stitching. I mean, you can glue it on and then stitch it. You can add a bit of double-sided tape, or you can just wing it and hope for the best. You want to get as close as you can without getting too close to the metal ring. I change the way I do this every time I pretty much do it, because, you know, why not? Rachel does give you a diagram of a way to do it without going over yourself, but I like to make patterns. Right, so once we've done that, right, so now we are going to get our another E piece. We want to make sure that this is nice and flat, so just pin, clip the top, and then just clip on the bottom as well, just whilst you're doing the next bit. Right, so now what you're going to do is you're going to place the lining piece face up, and then you're going to pop this on there, because what you're doing is you're making the pocket. So you want to see the right side in there when you open it. So line them up again. Again, I've cut it on the fold so I can see the line there. So line up there. Line up down the bottom, and then just line up the rest of the way round. See, it's got a bit wimpled, a bit squished there. do apologise if you can hear one of my kids screaming. They're playing on their Xbox, and you know, they can't seem to play without screaming. Right, so now we're going to take that to the machine. Before we do that, we want to make sure that we put the zip back inside and cut off the excess. I do this so that I can save a bit of zipper tape for it. So we're going to take it to the machine and we're just going to stitch all the way around there with the stay stitching. So that is given as instructions in the front of the pattern, and it states the seam allowance to use. And there we go. There we have our side zipper pocket. So now it's on to the next bit. Okay, so now we're going to do our G pieces. Now I'm doing these ever so slightly different than the pattern because I've used fabric with odicoat on it and I didn't want to waste the fabric and cut 4 out. So what I've done is, using the seam allowance that's stated in the pattern, I've sewn a line as the seam allowance, and then I've added double-sided tape, get a sharp pair of scissors, and I'm literally going to cut almost to the line. I've also ironed on G700, which is the UK equivalent of Styleville, onto it, so I know the fabric's not going to fray. So I'm literally cutting holes, just snipping it. The smaller the snips, about 1/2 inch is enough. You don't want them too big because then it makes it a bit difficult to get round the curves and things. Right, so I'm going to pull the tape off and then I will be back. Right, so I have taken the double-sided tape off, and as some of you may know, me and double-sided tape, we have a love-hate relationship. I'm sure we love to hate each other. Right, so now what we're going to do is, starting in the middle, we're going to just fold just a tiny on, almost over the, so the stitching is this side just. This was the only way I could come up with of actually making sure that the seam, it followed the same curves as the bag, because the bag's got some lovely curves on it. So I wanted to try and keep them in it. And when you're trying to measure it, it gets really complicated, and so I did it this way, and it's worked really well on the extra large and the small that I've made. And then just folding them over. I did try with glue, but it didn't work quite as well. I found tape was better for me. You can see how the smaller, because they're smaller squares, they're working, they fold over better. Drop my lever press, and then you can just give it a little bit of a roll, and there you have your overlay. What I will also do, but won't take it off, is just to help with the sticking to the fabric when it comes to it. I'll put on these. So I will do the other one off camera, and then I will be back. So that's both your G pieces done now, and I've added double-sided tape. So now we're on to the next step. Right, so now we need our H panels. Don't do what I did and get one of your H panels muddled up with your I panel. I had to redo it. So our H panels, we want one of those. We want our L outside lining pocket, and our zip that we're using on the front, as well as our handles. I'm using webbing. My webbing is actually bigger than the pattern calls for. It's a 2-inch and not a 1.5 inch. So I will do slightly different measurements on the side once I've done the zip. So we need to find our middle of the right. So now we want to measure down the amount in the pattern. Ooh. I'm doing the medium, the large, so there are different ones depending on what size you're doing. So you now want to find the middle of your panel, your lining. Want to line up this edge here with that. So this is the wrong side up, she says. Yeah. Right. To measure down. So I'm going to take that to the machine and we're going to stitch. I'm just going to stitch along the top here and the bottom there. I'm not doing the side bits. So now we're going to stitch that get as close to the edge as you can. Right, so now we're going to use our seam ripper to rip through, and then we want to cut some V's as close to the edge stitching as you can without cutting your stitching. Fold those over. If you've got your stuff you can iron, then iron it, but mine's waterproof canvas and ripstop because it's for camping, so you know, you never know what the weather's going to be like when you camp. Finger press it. Right, so now we're going to need our zip. Oh. Double-sided tape. See, this is why I normally do it off camera. Right, so now we're going to want to put our zip now we're going to take this machine and stitch round, making sure to start here, go round. When we get to here, we'll bring the zip in. Right, so now we need to stitch this. Lift the foot up, leaving the needle down. Just redo that bit I've just missed. Right, so now I'm going to cut that off. Sure to try not to set fire to the bag. Right, so now we want to bring up those two together, and we're going to just sew round, making sure to remove it around the bag. I think I've used this the wrong way round. Right, so you want to make sure you've flattened out your pocket underneath. So now we're going to measure up the distance in the pattern. Now, right, so as mine's slightly different, I have got a slightly different measurement to do, but you put your line in, draw it, so long as you make sure that each one is from the same distance, and you remember the distance for when you go to do the back side of the bag, then it will be fine. So I'm going to take that to the machine. We're going to stitch up here, across, down, and then do a X in each one of these. Right, so I've changed to thread that matches the vinyl, the webbing, and what I do is I actually use a smaller stitch so that it doesn't show, but because it's having to carry the weight, it's a smaller stitch, so it's like there's more of them, but because it matches, it doesn't show. So the top line is done with the line that we drew to put the zip in. Right, so you can also add double-sided tape if you want. You also want to make sure that your zipper pocket is flat. Whoa! There we go. So now we're going to do exactly the same on the other piece, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I have drawn out the lines using the amount in the pattern and then my one to match my front one, because my my webbing is wider. It's 2 inch and not 1.5 inches. If you want to add zipper tape, no. Double-sided tape. You also want to make sure that your handle's not twisted, because in my small one I managed to I've twisted the thing, so it's always worth making sure that you have and then whatever distance you did your box at before, do it again, so you've got a repeat of the front. So I'll take that to the machine and then I'll be back. Right, so we've done both our bags fronts, so now our front and our back. So now we're going to want our G pieces and we're going to put them on here. So take the tape off the back, right. If I managed to cut one of them wrong. Right. That's fine, because we have a nice generous seam allowance. we will just so then we'll take that to the machine and we'll just top stitch along there and then just baste it to there. Although it doesn't quite meet, it will be in the seam allowance, so that will be fine. So I'll do the same with the other one, then take them to the machine. Right, so now we're going to top stitch along as close to the top as you can. To do this bit, so let's base this one on. Right, so now we're on to the next bit. So that's your front and back panels now complete. We're going to add our bottom panel now. It is worth making sure that you keep them in separate places and labelled, because the first bag I made, I actually got one of my side panel messed up. My bottom panel muddled up with my side panel, so I had to unpick it and redo it. So make sure that your eyepiece is kept away. I think it's eye and not, I can't say, but your bottom panel is kept to one side. So we're literally going to place it onto here, and we're going to take it to the machine, and then we're going to stitch it with the seam allowance on both parts. So making sure you've gone down to your construction length stitch using the seam allowance staples in the pattern. And now I'm going to do exactly the same on this side. Quite lined up at the bottom. I think my measurements are out slightly somewhere. Right, so now we're going to need to add our foam. Our fleece. Okay, so because mine's waterproof canvas, I have put double-sided sticky tape on, and I'm going to add the fleece onto this because I tried ironing it and it didn't stick. So this is my way of doing it. There we go. So now the fleece is on. I'm going to take it to the machine and we are going to top stitch along these seams here, which will also help give stickiness, help keep the fleece in place. Right, so we're going to need to go to our top stitch length, switch our machine on, help, and you want to make sure that your seams are butterflied out underneath as much as you can. Feel my seams fighting me a bit there. Very straight. My fabric didn't want to fold very well. So just move your it's all about scrunching up your bag so that you can get it through your machine, making sure good job, this one's for me. It's not the straightest because my seams didn't want to lie flat particularly, so it's fought against those. See, I've managed to get this one much flatter. It just obviously behaved itself, so it's easier to go through. Also, because I'm using odicoated fabric, I've got a Teflon foot on my machine. So that's now helped to keep that on. You can see where my seams weren't quite plain ball, where they weren't butterflied out enough. They were just fighting against each other. So it's worth, when you do it, actually taking your time. I have found double-sided tape helps to keep the fleece on my waterproof canvas. I did try spray based in my Seville laptop bag, and you can see the disaster that turned into. It all came unstuck, so that's what I've used now. Now we're going to put our zipper top on, so we'll need to grab our zipper top and then we can almost finish the outside of the bag. So we've got our zipper that we did. Oh, what have I done wrong? Back in a minute. Okay, so I discovered what I did wrong. I read the wrong measurements. There's joys of being dyslexic. So now, yay, it fits. So just make sure when you're doing a pattern that has multiple sizes on it, you cut everything to the size that is needed. Right, so we're going to put our zipper on now. I like to start on this side because I have this zipper pull, and again, being dyslexic, I can sometimes put them on the wrong side, so I like them to match. So I look at it this way. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our zip and we are going to turn it right sides together with the bag. We're going to attach it. To the bag. I start in each corner. This is why I've done the medium, because the large I couldn't get it all on the camera. I wouldn't be able to get it all in the picture. And the small is a little bit difficult to do this next, the top stitching of the zip, only because I have I don't have a free arm on my sewing machine. Maybe one day when I'm rich, or at least have some money, I'll treat myself to, I'd love a cylinder triple feed industrial. I think that's my dream at the moment. Right, so just going to need to wiggle that because it doesn't quite want to fit. So I'm going to take that to the machine and we're going to stitch that on using the seam allowance in the pattern. So making sure we have our machine turned back down to construction length stitch, we are going to stitch with the seam allowance in the pattern. Stopping getting near to the zip, so move the zip out the way. Fold that over, making sure that the zip's tucked under and the fabric comes away so it's tucked down. We're going to top stitch that. I am slightly out somehow. I didn't quite make it quite long enough, but that's fine because that will be within the seam allowance, so I'm not too worried about that. So making sure to go up to your top stitch allowance, and I'm making sure that the seam's tucked under and the fabric's pulled away, because this is a drop-in lining. So I'm just making sure I pull the zip away, the fabric down. Now I'm going to do exactly the same on this side. So I'm going to measure up the edges just so that it lies flat, making sure my my straps are out of my seam allowance, and I'm just gonna clip down. And as I messed up the measurements and I'm slightly short, I've done that the same, made sure it's the same size, so I've lined the 2 outer edges up so that when we sew it, we know the bag's not going to be crooked. I really am sorry, I tried to work out a better angle, but as I film on my phone, I'm a bit stuck on how much I can fit in to the frame. I'm going to sew that again using the seam allowance stated in the pattern. Going to move the zip out of the way. So now this is where it gets a little bit more difficult. Right, so I've turned the bag the right side in, and again you want to pull your zip away. This is a bit of a, you have to wiggle and jiggle it round because it's a cylinder, so we're now trying to sew on the cylinder, whereas if you've got a free arm it's slightly easier because the bottom of the bag will go underneath your machine. So I've sort of brought mine as close to the edge as I dare. Construction, top stitch length, find my foot pedal. I know some people put their machines up on books and things to try and get the free arm. It's just slow and steady. It's where it's slightly easier because this is bigger. It was quite hard on the small because you've got a much smaller opening. So again, we're making sure our zip is down. So now that's your top zip, top in and top stitch. So now we're going to add our side panels. So we're going to need our piece with the just the zip across it, and we need to find the middle of our bag on the bottom and the middle on here. And we already know the middle is here, so turn it back turn it inside out. Right, now I'm going to put them right sides together. I'm going to start at the bottom, match up my two V's, my two centre points, and I'm going to clip it along the bottom just to where it starts to curve upwards, round, and then up to here again, my centre point to my centre point. Now this is the side where I didn't quite match up I still cut my zip a little too short, so I'm making sure to line this up with my outside fabric opposed to my zipper tab, but that's fine because that will be within the seam allowance of the pattern, she says, hopefully. Now we're just going to pin all the way around. I'm following the curve of the bag, not the zip. If I have a bit to play with, I will after this, we're about to go and start our lining. So there's not many steps left until we have to till we finish the bag. Exciting much. Right, so now we're going to take that to the machine, making sure the seams are as butterflied as you can. It just helps keep the bulk, reduce the bulk on the seams. I'm going to take that to the machine and we're going to stitch around it. Right, so I'm sewing it with the pocket piece up because I can see the lines I stitched before, but it also means I can follow the shape. Back to construction length stitch. Right, let's make that a little bit where we go. And also, which I've forgotten to do, but it's make sure your zip on your panel is in the middle, so that it's not on the side when you go to try and sew it. It's just one extra thing to try and juggle then. There we go. Touch your hand BP, so turn it back in the right way, because you know we all like to check that you've caught it all. It does say to cut the seam allowance down. I'm not, simply because my lining is so thin anyway. I just like the fact it gives it a little bit more. See, look, I got slightly caught there. You get a neater turn edge, but I'm not cutting mine down. There we go. Looking good. So now we're going to pop this to one side, and we're going to grab the lining. Right, so you're going to need your E piece in a moment. You're going to need one of your K pieces and your M piece. So we're going to put our interior pocket in. So find the middle. I know what I haven't cut out. Oh no, there isn't one, that's why. I was just thinking I didn't cut a lining bottom piece out, but no, because there is no lining bottom piece. These are sewn together. It's included in the length, you'll see. Oh dear, brain's going a mile a minute and not registering. So measure down the distance in the pattern. Helps if I can read a ruler, because you know, we all know I can't always. This is a erasable pen, she says, hopefully. And then we want to sorry, getting confused again. Easily done with me, isn't it? So let's find the middle on our pocket. Measure, line up our two halves together, and then clip. Don't choke on your pen lid. Right, so now we want to measure down the amount given in the pattern. Now we're going to take that to the machine, and we are going to stitch along this line and along this line, if they don't disappear before I get to them. Right, this might be touch and go, making sure your centres are still lined up and you're still lined up with your line that you drew that are slowly disappearing on me. Stop. bit longer line, a little bit longer. Okay, the line just about lasted. So using your seam ripper down the middle, you can draw the line and the V's and cut them out. That doesn't want to go back in its pot. Right, and then we're going to cut as close to those edges without cutting the stitching. Now, it's a perfect example of what not to do. You can see my two lines of stitching don't quite meet up. I've gone over slightly. I'm not too worried because this bag's for me, but you really need to be as close to that edge as you can, because otherwise you don't get such a nice crisp turn for the edge of the zipper. It's all about the turning. But as this bag's going to get thrown around fields and things because it's for camping, I don't mind. Hence why it's made out of waterproof fabric. So hopefully if it's a rainy camp, my clothes stay dry. Because, you know, good old British weather and all. You're going to want your zip. One works. Burn your edges. Add some tape. Now, I'm going to give it a go, but you know, I bet it's going to not peel off very easily for me because, you know, we know that's how it rolls. And then about you guys, it's the last few days, and this time next week, all my kids will have broken up for summer. So the mayhem will commence. I have got a zip on. I just don't cut my tape until I've sewn the zip on, because it just means I can keep the zipper pull out of the zip and not waste any zipper tape. Because we all know bag making is expensive enough. Right, so now I'm going to take that to the machine and I'm going to top stitch the way round. Now, I could change to a coordinating thread, but I can't be bothered. Right, so making sure you've got your zipper pocket down, your zips on. We're going to sew all the way round this now. Helps if my machine's on. Again, making sure your zipper pocket's out of the way. Put your foot back down. Right, and then before we turn up and round, put your zip back through, turn, making sure you hold your zipper tape closed. There we go. So now we can cut the zipper tape, singe it, and now what we're going to do is bring up this bit to here. My measuring seems to be out somewhere. But that's fine. So starting here, we're going to sew up the sides, making sure we've moved our lining out of the way. I mean, realistically, I should use a matching thread, but it's for me. So if I was making it to sell, I'd match the thread. But I can never have enough purple. So that's now your zipper pocket done. And yes, you can see the purple thread through, but I'm not worried, and it helps you guys see. And yes, I have gone off, almost off slightly there, so I could unpick it and go round, but I don't. Also, the other thing I've started doing is using a smaller stitch around my zipper opening. I just find that sometimes you're not going off so far because you've got more control over it. So now we're going to need our other K piece. So we're going to take our 2 K pieces and we're going to sew them along the bottom using the seam allowance in the pattern. So we're going to do just along the bottom, not the top. So just stitching across the bottom. Right. Now this next bit, I'm going to need a ruler and a pen. Let's use this one because that one went a bit quick last time. And we're going to just pin the top. It's the rain I can hear. I wondered what I could hear then. Right. And we are going to measure in the distance on the pattern, and we're going to take it to the machine, and we are just going to stitch from that line we made that way, and from the line we made, from the line we made here that way, so all of this will stay open. Right, now we want to fold this over and fold this down. So I think I'm going to take it to the iron. I'll be right back. Right, so it's quite it's important that you have these folded over nicely, because they are going to be your opening of your bag. So we now have our centerpieces. We don't need to worry about finding them. Just open up. I know this is a drop-in lining, but don't panic, because it is a really an easy one. I don't particularly like drop-in linings, but I don't mind this one. And I do something slightly different, you know, because it wouldn't be a video of mine without me doing something slightly different that makes it slightly easier for me without having a free arm. I glue it. I don't know how well it will last. I'm going to test that one out. But as I am using a purse that I glued a frame into a couple of years ago, and the glue hasn't come undone yet, I'm hoping that it means that it will hold, so I just don't do the final top stitch, because I never like the way I can get the final top stitch, because I can't get my machine in particularly well. I just don't particularly like it, but this one I'm quite happy with the way it's finished. So but it's also a really good way of actually finishing the bag, and then you can top stitch it if you want once the glue's dried. It's a good way of keeping it and making sure all the pieces don't move around. Take that to the machine and we're going to stitch that. Again, I'm sewing the panel the right side up. Again, it's entirely up to you which way round you sew. Good old hemostats. Don't forget, you are in charge of your fabric and your sewing machine. Your fabric and your machine don't own you. Oh look! No! I lost a bobbin chicken. Right, let's change the bobbin and I'll be back. So I finished sewing on my side pocket. So that is now your bag with your pocket in. So now what we're going to do is we're going to need our P piece, I think, which is our pocket, our shoe pocket liner. So what we're going to do is we're going to, this is still folded in half, so this is the long edge, and this is the short edge. We're going to want to stitch along the short edge. So we stitch along the short edge, which is this one. Right, so I've stitched along the short edge. Now what you're going to want to do is you want to fold this in half. So we want to just butterfly down the seams. And we want to turn, it's basically we want the seam inside the bag. So we're just going to turn it, fold it in half, that's the word. That's right. Right, so now we've done that. So our seams are inside. So whichever way you look at it, you've got no raw edges. Right, so now we're going to need a pile of bags, bits. So we're going to need our exterior. We're going to need our zipper pocket. We're going to need our shoe pocket, and we're going to need our lining. So we're going to turn this one inside out, opening up the zip. Oh, no, I don't need to open up the zip actually. We'll half open it because then that will give it some tension there. Turn that one inside out. That's now inside out. We're going to take this piece, and on our bottom we are just going to pin the bottom, so just to here, and these bits will actually stick out, they won't be in the seam allowance. We're going to pin those on. Now, open this up, tuck this in there, do pin the zipper tape all the way around. You do need the zipper tape open for this. Oh. now we've done that, we're going to grab our lining piece. We're going to turn it right side out. See what I haven't done, I forgot to tack this bit on, but hey. Right, so then we are going to place our shoe pocket, line it up there, on the so you've got, this is it, so you've got your lining panel, your lining panel outside, and then we're just going to put this on top, so it's going to lie on top of the lining panel. Sorry, brain trying to compute doesn't always work. I can't always get my words to my mouth. Right. So I'm going to take that to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to baste those two together. And if you want, you can also baste this round if it makes it easier for you before we then put the two together. Right, so I've just basted those three pieces together. So now we're going to want to find our top and our top, and we're going to feed our lining through. So when you look inside, you have right sides together, and this is in between the right sides and the lining, she says, hopefully. Right, so we're going to find, sure, we have the top at the top. Yeah. Line that up with the top up here. And we want to line the bottom up with the bottom down here. And if it's too many layers to all handle, because you're going around a curve, then you can baste this on first with a very small seam allowance. Sometimes I like to live dangerously. So when it backfires, you know, just remind me I said I wanted to live life dangerously. Right, so now we're going to take that to the machine. Can you see how, that one's not because it's got a clip on it, but can you see how my zipper tabs are actually out of the fabric? Right, so now, I'm starting in the wrong place. we want to start at the curve. So we don't want to start, we want to start where the zipper tape starts, not across the bottom. So the bottom bit we don't sew. We'll do that in a minute with a slightly different seam allowance. So now we are just sewing round the zip, all 3 layers together to the zip. Oh, they've all fallen off. All my no. Right, so you've stitched all around the zip using the seam allowance in the pattern, and your clips shouldn't have popped off like mine did, but hey, at least they were only the ones on the bottom that we weren't sewing right now. Right, so now we're going to sew across the bottom bit, and we are going to use a different seam allowance that is stated in the pattern. Let's just move that zip out of the way. She says, that's it, just needs it just a little bit. Line all the layers back up again. Now we sew this one with a slightly different seam allowance, but again, they're stated in the pattern. Right, now's the moment of truth as to whether I've actually done this right or not. So let's pull the lining out. Turn the bag inside out, and then taking this, push it through. Yes! Yes! Oh, it's always so satisfying. Always so satisfying. Give it a tug. Now, I'm going to fold this inside. I did the first one, no problem. Second one, I just couldn't get my head around it again. I was like, what? The more I read it, the more confused I got. And then I was like, oh, yes. Undo the zip. Right, so now we're going to take this to the machine and we're going to top stitch just along here. So we're going to make sure all this is inside and pulled nice and tight. I didn't do this on the small bag because the small bag is really small. I could have done, I might be able to, I don't know, but I didn't do it on that one. So let's take that to the machine and top stitch that. I'm actually going to top stitch this upside down because I found when I tried to do it the other way, this all bunched up, so I need to be able to control the lining more easier. Making sure I'm pulling everything away from the zip. Make sure your zip is moved, your inside zip or external on the side zip is moved out, and your top zip even just gives you more space to move. Now that's all top stitched up, you can zip it up. Right, now this is where I do it slightly different to the pattern. I now turn everything inside out. I just find it easier to handle. Now, I take the top stitch here is pretty much your top on your outside. So what I do is I bring the folded bit up to that line. Because I always struggle to get the bottom bits nice when I'm trying to top stitch. So then I grab a bit of glue. She says if there's any, there is glue in there. glue you in. Right, so then I pop that on with the glue and I stick a thingy on it. Now do the same this end. It's a bit easier because you haven't got the zip. Now what I do first of all is I pin or clip all the way along. Just making sure I line up, and then you could just top stitch this, but as I don't have a free arm and I struggle to get it under my machine, or this is quite big so you might not, I've done it this way and I thought I'll see how it goes. So basically clip it on. Broken clip. Right, so then this is where I normally end up getting a little bit messy now, because you know it's me and glue. I'm just going to remove a few. I'm just working on a small amount at a time. This glue always bubbles up if you don't use it. So I'm just keeping the glue below my stitch line, and then I'm just putting this up to the stitch line, and then I'm popping on a clip and praying that I don't put that much glue on that I glue my clips to my bag. I think one of the reasons I don't like drop-in linings is I struggle to get a nice finished top stitch around the end. So if this works, then this is a really good alternative for me. Well, no, I know it works, it's whether it lasts. Right, so now I'm just going to do exactly the same on the other side and I'll be back. Okay, so now the glue's dried, I'm going to take off our clips. And this is where, if you want to top stitch it, you can top stitch it. I'm not going to. Now to open up here, and here's your shoe bag. So now I want to, I don't think that's particularly which way round you do it. I'm going to just stitch these two bits together. If you do it in matching thread, you won't see it. Push it in, and there you have your finished bag with a shoe liner thing in it. There we go. And there we go, you've finished your bag. You can make yourself a strap if you want to make yourself a strap to go with it, or you've just got your carry straps. Thank you for watching.